Stuart, how you doing?
I'm doing all right because we're in our new studio trying to make this weird technology work, and I feel like my mum trying to make a smartphone work. Which
No, don't be like that. It's I'm quite surprised that we managed to get it all set up in such a short time, and all thanks to the BSI guys and home where we are. As you can see, the branding in the background there. We have really struggled since our last podcast with finding a guest for the letter O.
Yeah, all the obvious O's.
Right, we went through loads of them. We reached out to the Outcasts, the Only Ones, John Otway, loads. No response. But so we decided, let's take it back to how it was in Series 1. It's just you and I, Stuart.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. Obviously,
the originals.
We are the originals, and this is where the value
the originals.
is. Yeah, I mean, totally the originals. So, yeah, we're gonna sort of mix it up a little bit on this one. We did try, and there was a couple of guests actually lined up, but time and diaries didn't really go our way. So on this, you've just got the Waldorf and Stadler of punk, me and Ewan, and we're going to look at some of the original bands. And things that inspired us to get into this sort of between 76 and 79. But before we do that, did we got any shout-outs or any?
Yeah, we've got a few shout-outs. I mean, it's been about 3 weeks since the Glenn Matlock pod, and we've been to some gigs. A shout-out to two of the best Irish bands I've seen in years since one of my originals. As you'll find out, one of my originals is an Irish band. But last week, I managed to catch Kneecap and Fontaine's DC, and I've got to say, wow, the amount of talent that's coming out of Northern and Southern Ireland at the moment is phenomenal. And we've been big supporters of Meryl Street and Molly Valpine on the podcast, the Murder Capital, bands like that. So please check them out. Kneecap were unbelievable.
Yeah, have you watched that film?
Oh, right. I'm going to state this now. I'm, living in West Belfast, and if that film is true,
yeah,
they're too good. It's too good to be true.
Are they the Beastie Boys of Northern Ireland?
They are the Beastie Boys of Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
And that was a friend of mine saw them in the Barrowland in Glasgow. I saw them at the Forum in Kentish Town. Let's just say there weren't many English accents in the audience that night, but the last gig of the tour was the Forum in Kentish Town, and they were like the Beastie Boys. They hit every note. When they were rapping, the raps were so on point that, a cynical me would say, these guys have been to acting school or musical theatre, because it was so absolutely brilliant. And the film, the acting in the film, I mean, those two guys could be up there with Cillian, whatever his name.
Cillian Murphy.
Cillian Murphy. And I mean, the acting was spot on. And if you ever want to see the best scene of somebody off their nut in ketamine, watch that film, right? So
there's an advert there for your kids.
Yeah, there you go. So there'll be a few mentions of things like that tonight, I'm sure, when we're talking about originals, because we were there. We were there. And, the other gigs that, we went to see Steve Ignorant.
We did go and see Steve Ignorant and doing the Crass songs at the 100 Club with the amazing Carol Hodge and the rest of the band. And it was quite moving, actually. Those songs are just so timeless in when I'm a bit biased, but what's going on in the world? I mean, listening to Big A, Little A and all the rest of it was just really good. And what a nice guy, really nice guy, Steve. And he's been on the pod, and we spoke to him at the gig, and he's just really, really lovely.
And, the gigs don't stop. Running up to Christmas, it's like... It's
I went to the Subhumans.
Oh, you did? Yeah.
I did go to the Subhumans in New Cross, and just brilliant. They're always brilliant, aren't they? They're just like they're like an evergreen, They're just always great. And I think Dick must have a portrait of himself in an attic as a really old man, because he looks exactly the same as he did in 1981. But they were good, and we've got a couple of other things coming. We're going to Conflict at the end of the week.
We got Conflict on Friday night, and I think we've got Glen Matlock on Saturday, or maybe Palace.
I think we're going to Palace,
Right.
actually,
Okay.
in Hammersmith, because one of the bands we work with. So
Yeah.
Gonna go
And
see
then
them.
we've got I've got the Chameleons
Yeah.
following week with the Membranes. So shout out to John Robb if you listen.
Nice.
Right.
Yeah,
So
hi,
that's
John.
Shepherd's
Yeah.
Bush Empire, and then the following Friday we've got the Exploited.
Oh, I'm so looking forward to that.
So-
And actually, talking of the Exploited, because we've got the A to Z of Punk. We're up to P after we've done this one,
Yeah.
and we're trying to speak to Watty about coming on, because we'd love to have him on for Punk's Not Dead for P.
Yeah.
So have you got any other shout outs? Any other?
And the only other shout out that I had were two things that really disappoint me at the moment.
Right.
The weather.
Yeah.
Fucking hell. Storm Bert.
Yeah. Storm Bird. What's next? Storm
Yeah.
Ernie.
Bert and Ernie. Bert and Ernie. No, it has to be with a C.
Oh, does it? Oh,
yeah,
is that
so
how it
it'll
works?
Be, yeah, it's the alphabet, so it'll be Storm Colin.
Or see you next Tuesday.
Yeah. Storm, see you next Tuesday.
Yeah.
And talking to see you next Tuesday, we have to mention Trump.
We do have to mention Trump. Everyone else has mentioned Trump, and we don't
Yep.
want to be left out. And so difficult to know what to say, really. I mean,
Exactly. Well, it hasn't happened yet. He's not in.
no, he's in January, isn't he?
Yeah.
And then that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out in America. And yeah, good luck, everyone.
Yeah.
Over in the US. Yeah,
I think,
Just-
we're getting close.
we are getting close. And
I
then,
mean, the thing is, the worrying thing that's not being reported that heavily on mainstream media, and I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist or anybody that supports Farage or anything like that, but in the last 5 days in London, there's been 5 controlled explosions, and there's drones flying over the American air bases in the UK.
yeah.
Hey, come on, Donald, sort it out. Stop World War III.
And where's your trousers?
Yeah, exactly. And stop building fucking golf courses in Scotland.
Yeah.
Get out.
Yeah. Oh, well, we'll watch the apocalypse unpacked
Yeah.
and bring it to you here on the podcast as it happens. And I've got a shout out, which is to Sarah, our producer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you heard that right. We've got a producer who's helped us set all this up and get us rocking and rolling for this first proper studio recording. And we are attempting to put this out on YouTube.
Yep. They are.
Coming up. So look at us being all techie. Anyway, the
Really?
idea of tonight.
I was always DIY.
You were a bit DIY. You were trying to fix the laptop with a hammer.
Yeah. Exactly. There's a penny stuck in my Mac underneath it, and it just whirs.
Really?
Yeah, so, it just whirs all the time. Whir. What
Yeah.
a great word. Whir.
Well, yeah. Right. So the idea tonight is, or today, whenever you're listening to it, is to do O for originals. And we're going to talk a little bit about things that inspired us back 76 to 79. And we've picked 5 bands each to talk about and what they kind of meant to us and their legacy, etc. So, I mean, it doesn't have to be a band, does it? It could be
No, it could be
anything.
anything. It could be anything. But I have picked 5 bands.
Okay. Well, as I've been rabbiting on.
No, you go first.
Oh, all right. I'll go first. Well, I'll go first. And, I'm going to go for the Pistols, as I really like the Pistols. And they were, as I've said on previous podcasts, I moved over to the UK from South Africa, where I grew up at the end of 76, the beginning of 77, and arrived from a rather dark or authoritarian place South Africa was at that time, and all over the news and on TV, etc., was this band and this new thing, punk rock. And of course, it was the Queen's Jubilee in 77, and I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. And after having been in South Africa as a kid, and the Pistols sort of exploding onto the media and onto the scene, I just had to have a part of it. And if there was ever a band and a look and a whole aesthetic that summed up how I felt at that time, it was them. And obviously, Never Mind the Bollocks is one of the best albums ever made, and a real stalwart of the whole sort of punk rock genre. So,
And having Glenn Matlock on the last episode
Oh, it
of
was
the podcast
amazing.
was like a dream come true.
it was amazing, and founding member of the Pistols. And although he didn't really want to, I mean, a lot of it's been said, and he was really nice, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. I mean, there was another interview I read with him this week, and we managed to get the cherry popping Blondie story in our podcast,
we did.
but
Yeah.
the NME got the fact that McGee actually asked him to join Oasis, and he thought they were boring, and he turned it down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go.
But he's gone up even further in my estimation. It has to be said.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there'll be no dynamic pricing on the Glenn Matlock tour currently taking place with Kathy Valentine from the Go-Go's.
No, absolutely. And he plays at Dingwall's on Saturday.
30th, yeah.
But a really lovely guy. I mean, we've been really lucky with the guests that we've had on and him being amazing. So anyway, Sex Pistols for me at number one, and everything that comes with them. I also noticed that Public Image Limited are playing at Rebellion next year, which is with And the Damned.
No.
But we'll talk more about them later.
Steady. We can get to the Damned at any point. I'm sure they're coming. Now, the way I wanted to do it was in the way, having been in the music industry for 40 years, you do a chart rundown. You usually start at the bottom and work your way to number one.
Right, okay.
Well, Stuart shot his load early there because I'm sure that was the number one of yours. So I'm going to go from 5 to 1. All
right, you go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, like a Revillos song. And I'll yeah.
Oh yeah, Revillos.
Motorbike Beat.
Fee Fife, Gail Warning.
That's it. Yeah, yeah.
Great names in punk rock.
Because you were about to correct me there and say Resillos.
I was.
And I would have countered with a classic backhand Revillos Motorbike Beat. Anyway.
So, so my number 5 is a band that have just released, I think it's their 17th album. I might be wrong in that. If there's any Cure fans out there, they might, but they've released a hell of a lot of albums. And, I first got introduced to the Cure on their first album. I think it was called Three Imaginary Boys, pink sleeve with
It was 17 seconds.
17 seconds. No, I think that was after.
Right. Which album was the Forest on?
Three Imaginary Boys.
Right.
I'm sure.
Okay.
Pink sleeve. Something about Robert Smith has just been, it was punk. It was post-punk. It was a bit of goth. But pop sensibility and everything that he did. And I think it was 1979, he joined Susie and the Banshees.
He did. Yeah, he did. And he's in Dear Prudence, the video.
Yeah, is he?
Yeah.
Right, okay. And because that in 79 was the Join Hands tour. Susie and the Banshees Join Hands tour. And the original guitarist, John Mackay, pulled out, and they were due to play Glasgow Concert Hall that night, and it was what a lineup. Susie and the Banshees, The Cure, and the Scars.
Wow.
Scars were a great band from Edinburgh. And unfortunately it didn't go ahead, and it was cancelled. But he later rejoined The Cure, rejoined the Banshees when John McGeoch left in 1982, and they played at the Glasgow Apollo. And I managed to see Robert Smith play with the the Banshees.
John McGeoch, he was in Magazine, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. I mean, she obviously had something about guitarists.
Yeah, well.
For John Mackay and John...
She likes cherries.
She likes cherries. No, that was Blondie.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Yeah. And the Apollo, on the so sought-after concert hall show, the bands that were the support on that Banshees tour, The Cure, The Human League, I mean, it's unbelievable, support bands. But on that tour in 82, when Robert Smith sat in for John McGeoch, the support band was a band from, I think they were from Northern Ireland, called Zera One. And Zera One, they were very much quite this sort of early YouTube bombastic sound. I didn't really like them. But one of the guys in Zera One went on to form Fatima Mansions with Cathal Coughlin, I believe.
Yeah. So we've moved out of the 76 to 79.
Hang on. But what I'm saying is, The Cure played a couple of weeks ago in London at the Roxy, and it was promoting their new album. And to be honest, I thought, this is going to just be they're going to fire through the new album. Well, wow. If you ever get the chance to see The Cure and you haven't seen them, and you want to see a greatest hits of great pop songs written in a post-punk style, go and see The Cure on their next tour. The Cure for me on number 5. Robert Smith, Simon Gallup, Heroes.
Well, I don't really know what to do now because I've been usurped from going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
You need to go back the way.
I'll go back.
You need to go back to go forward.
I've got the Pistols out of the way, so I'll go back. And it was a toss-up for me at number 5 between the Stranglers and X-Ray Specs. And originally I chose the Stranglers because they kind of came from the pub rock sort of scene at the beginning.
The Dr. Feelgood, Mink
Kilburn and the High Roads. You know, Slaughter and the Dogs.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
but they were called the Guildford Stranglers.
That's right. They were called the Guildford Stranglers. We went to see them in Guildford.
Yeah. We did, yeah.
And I found it really difficult to choose between the Stranglers and X-Ray Specs. X-Ray Specs obviously only really made one real album, but the Stranglers have gone on to make loads. But I am going to go for the Stranglers because we went to see them at the Albert Hall when they did their gig recently, and they were amazing. And as we were sitting in the gig, I just realised how many amazing songs that they've written.
I mean, how many? Again, this goes back to the pop sensibility of evergreen copyrights.
Yeah.
When you talk about, when I was talking about the Cure, Skin Deep, Golden Brown, Peaches. No More Heroes.
Oh, just everything.
I could go on and on and on. Yeah. I'm getting as excited as you about the Stranglers.
Yeah, the Stranglers are great, and I like them now as much as I like them when Hugh Cornwell was in the band, and Baz or Barry. You know, he's been a brilliant front man, and I like the last album. It's got some really good songs on it. And
you know, there was something we were discussing today earlier on over text, and we mentioned about that legend spot at Glastonbury. Fuck me, it's Rod Stewart. Get away. It should be somebody like Hugh Cornwell.
Yeah, well, even the whole Stranglers would be.
Oh, the whole Stranglers. Yeah. There's a legend spot at Glastonbury. Sort yourself out, Evis.
Yeah, well, I don't even know what to say about Rod Stewart. I've never forgiven Rod Stewart for keeping the Pistols off the number 1 spot.
Yeah.
In when God Save the Queen came out.
Was it with Sailing or Maggie May?
No, it wasn't.
No?
It wasn't. No, it was It was a different song. I Don't Do Something. It wasn't either of those hits.
Right.
It was rather I think it was a track that was taken off. It was like an extra track on an album, but it was cobbled together to keep.
Do you think I'm sexy?
No,
we don't, Rod.
I'm not going to look it up. I was speaking to Sarah, our producer, earlier on, and she knew it and said it to me. I can't remember it because obviously I hate Rod Stewart. But anyway, the Stranglers. So they're my number 5.
I'll give you that.
Yeah,
I'll give you that.
Thank you. Thanks for giving that to me.
Well, you know, I'm going to stick with bands that begin with a C.
Right.
Because there's three in my top 5 that begin with a C.
Nice.
Right. But they are preceded by the word the. And I'm going to cross the pond.
Okay.
I'm going to cross the pond for a band that not only influenced me, but played a massive part in my, the way that I developed as a person through their albums. And there was an album that came out in 1980 called Songs the Lord Taught Us.
Nice.
Okay, it's 1980. I've stuck into the.
Well, there was a Greatest Hits before.
Yeah, but they were touring in Scotland before.
And they did form in 76.
Yeah, the first time they played in Scotland, they supported the Police.
Yeah, wow.
That band is the Cramps.
Great band.
And the Cramps were signed to IRS Records, which is run by Miles Copeland from the Police's
relative.
Brother.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is Miles Copeland.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was all the police organisations had sort of law.
Yeah, and that's where the IRS came from.
Yeah.
IRS, famous for obviously early police releases in America. They also signed REM as well as the Cramps.
And the B-52s.
And the B-52. No, the B-52s were in Sire.
No, not early.
Not early?
Anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the Cramps and the next time they came back to Scotland was actually 86, and they played in a bingo hall in Edinburgh. And we went through from the West Coast through to Edinburgh. And didn't see a start time in the tickets, right? And didn't know that Edinburgh shows didn't normally start until about 10 or 11 o'clock at night on a Sunday night. So we got there for 7 o'clock, right, thinking it would be that sort of... And we had acid.
Oh, no.
And we took acid at the Cramps.
Right.
And it was one of the funniest moments I have ever had in my life. We were in this pub in Edinburgh that didn't have brick walls. It had sort of just cast back walls, in stone. And we were talking about Barlinnie prison and gigs in prison, Johnny Cash, and all of that. And we thought the Cramps would be a great band to play in the Bar L, which was called the Big House in Glasgow. And we took this acid and we were in Jimmy Boyle's bowels. Jimmy Boyle is one of the most famous prisoners in Scotland, who's went on to be a famous architect, now, or not sculpture now.
Yeah.
But we're tripping off or not.
Yeah.
Garbage Man comes on.
Yeah.
Amazing. One of the gigs of all time. And to wrap that story round, when I moved to London, I think you and I saw the Cramps at the Astoria.
We did see the Cramps, yeah. I saw the Cramps supporting
Husker Du.
In Leeds. Yeah, amazing gig. But,
so I'm going for the Cramps.
Well, thank you. As you so very kindly gave me the Stranglers, I'm going to give you them.
Yeah.
Right, okay, I'm moving on to number 4. And this band probably won't surprise you, and they were formed in 1977 as a kind of response to seeing the Clash and the Pistols. And I'm going to go for Crass, and mainly because I think out of all the bands in the fullness of time, I think Crass will probably become remembered and respected and revered more in history than they were perhaps at the time almost. And will be seen as one of the classics. And they certainly defined an aspect of punk that they, really sort of forged. And I've got so much respect for them. And seeing Steve, as we said the other week, and stuff is really special. I think Crass had a lot of influence on people and moved on beyond music into art and politics and culture and all sorts of things, and were so instrumental for so many people about animal rights and war and a whole range of topics, and without them an awful lot of other things wouldn't have happened. So I think they were probably a little bit more of the more serious side of things, and going and taking acid and watching the Cramps is a fucking great laugh, but I think the Cramps were a little bit more Crass, were a little bit more to do with.
No, you could easily take an acid at Crass.
I don't know if I could have handled acid at a Crass gig. I saw Crass a couple of times, and acid was the last thing on my mind.
Yeah.
What they used to play and they had this film called Autopsy, which Mick Duffield had made with G, and it was basically just this collage of craziness and. You would have run screaming from the building if you'd been on acid.
Oh, yeah. But we were young. We're not encouraging anybody. And, in today's day and age.
Just remember, kids, this podcast is entertainment. It's for entertainment only.
For entertainment purposes only, yeah. I'm going to give you Crass.
Thanks.
I mean, I saw them back in the day. I saw them at Irvine Church Hall, West Coast of Scotland, with Poison Girls and Honey Bain, I believe.
Oh, brilliant.
Or was Honey Bain the supporting?
Anti-anxiety.
It was Anti-Anxiety. Yeah. I saw Honey Bain support UB40.
Yeah.
Never go and see UB40. If you like cod reggae, go and see UB40. But if you like real reggae, fuck off UB40.
Yeah.
So I'm giving you Crass because in the last 31 years since I've known you, Stuart, we have definitely seen Crass probably more times than any other band.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Crass and Conflict. We've been hundreds of gigs.
Remember that night we went to Shepherd's Bush Empire and it was Crass and Flux of Pink Indians?
Well, it was Steve when he did that. It was in 2002 or 3 or something. And it was when they did the 2 nights at Shepherd's Bush, and they had... he'd got that, and Giz Butt was in the band, he did, and it's the first sort of time he brought it all back, and it was Crass and Flux, there were other bands on the bill from the day, and
we really enjoyed it.
It was amazing.
We went back to this hotel and we met Deacon Blue, and we passed on our thoughts about Crass to Lorraine McIntosh and the other guy from Deacon. I can't remember his name, but they were very interested in the gig.
Yeah, they were. Yeah,
they just headlined Hammersmith Apollo, and we were at Shepherd's Bush Empire. So that was complete. Again, another mad night. Yeah. And I'd like to give a shout out at Steve Eglinton gig. Big shout out to Derek Burkett from One Little Independent.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we bumped into Derek.
We had a chat with Derek, which was...
we did invite Derek, talking to people who... I'm going to tell this story, because when you were at the beginning of the pod and you were talking about and people that we wanted on the show, one of the people we invited to come on to the podcast was Derek from One Little Independent, of course, was in Flux,
Yep.
and signed Bjork, and manages Bjork. And Bjork, obviously being in KUKL back in the day, put an album out on Crass called The Eye. And a really interesting guy and really, really nice, and known him for a long time, both of us. And but he didn't want to come on the podcast, and actually sent us this really lovely email saying that he really sort of prefers the bands and the artists that he works with to be at the forefront of things, and he doesn't really do interviews, and it's not really his. Yeah. It was just really lovely email, really nicely worded, very humble, and very humble, very nice guy. And he's put that Crass book out, which is
and he's signed, a lot more than the Sugar Cubes and Bjork. I mean, Bad Breeding, Shaman, Skunk Anansie.
And he also did the Sneaker Pimps and
Alabama 3 and Rocket from the Crypts and bands like that. So, yeah, I'm giving you that.
Well, I mean, my mate Nick's going to be listening to this, and we've mentioned Alabama 3 and Rocket from the Crypts, and he and Elemental Records were obviously the home for that, but, was supported by Derek and One Little Indian. But our friend Nick Evans, hello Nick, was very much involved in signing and developing those bands. But anyway, we're, is it your?
It's my shot.
So thanks for giving me Crass.
I'll give you Crass.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I'll give you that. Yeah. My third is a band that doesn't begin with a C. Irish band. Teenage Kicks.
Oh.
The Undertones.
Yeah.
Again, a very much pop sensibility in what they wrote about, and brothers Damien and John O'Neill were the main songwriters in the Undertones, fronted by Fergal Sharkey, who is still a massive hero of mine and campaigning for all the right things about the state of our rivers and waters in the UK. Thames Water, you should be ashamed. You should absolutely be ashamed. And the Undertones were also one of John Peel's favourite bands.
Well, there's that really great film, isn't there? Good call, by the way, the Undertones. But there's that really great film about Terry Hooley and Good Vibrations, and the guy and Terry Hooley who ran Good Vibrations put on that big gig in
Queen's Hall in Belfast
with the Outcasts and Rudy.
Hey, there you go. Going back to the beginning of the podcast again, another O that we reached out to try and get on the podcast was the Outcasts.
Well, we saw Greg from the Outcasts when we were at Rebellion, and we did. We had a really good night with him. God, I felt rough the next day, but but I mean, it's just really difficult with calendars and stuff.
No, I know. We'll get there. We've got an idea for Series 3, which we're keeping up our sleeve, and we're at, obviously after this one we're at P. But the Undertones, to me, Teenage Kicks, what a great debut single, and Mars Bar, Jimmy. I mean, you could go on and on and on, and great songwriting, great pop sensibility. First saw them with the Rosillas. It was a Sire double bill because they were both signed to Seymour Stein's Sire. I think it was Glasgow Apollo, the Rosillas and the Undertones. And I was lucky enough when I was a promoter to put on That Petrol Emotion in Scotland. And That Petrol Emotion was the band that Damien and John O'Neill formed after the Undertones split. I mean, they're currently touring. I'm going to be honest, I haven't seen them with the new singer. They're playing Rebellion next summer, so I will dip into that. But yeah, from a 12, 13-year-old kid listening to John Peel with the radio at his ear, and the Undertones did many a session on John Peel.
I remember that Hypnotised album. It's got them in their lobster bibs on the front, and I remember when it came out, and because it's quite poppy, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, it's very pop.
Yeah.
I mean, this is where I'm coming.
Yeah, no, I get it.
The Cure and, the Undertones. And
I'm certainly not saying that in a negative way, because in your collection at the time, you had all those different records. It was a different...
It wasn't pop like Terry Jacks' Seasons in the Sun.
No, it wasn't pop. But it was a bit Buzzcocksy.
It was, yeah.
I mean, there was another band that I haven't got in my top 5, but I mean, they were one of the originals. And I think the Buzzcocks wrote some of the best pop songs ever.
Oh, they did.
Yeah.
Singles Going Steady, the album,
brilliant,
is just one of the greatest punk albums of all time.
We've shared that one.
Yeah, but we'll share the Buzzcocks. Definitely, we'll share a Buzzcock.
Yeah.
Because that's all you get when you go and see them.
I saw that
there's a Buzzcock.
Isn't the Pistols and Frank Carter going out with the Stranglers and the Buzzcocks?
I think they're doing a show in Margate and they're doing a show at Bellahouston Park in Glasgow.
I'm not going. But my sister lives up in Lincoln. Hello, Louise. And the Stranglers are playing up there in Lincoln Castle.
I don't have a sister.
Well, you can come. You can come with me,
Yeah.
and you can see the Stranglers with me up in Lincoln when they play.
Yeah. Lincoln Castle.
Lincoln Castle, yeah. Anyway,
No, but it's A Strangler. It's only
JJ.
JJ
Yeah,
Burnell.
we're going to go and see the
and
Strangler.
it's only Steve Diggle.
Yeah, well, there's only a buzzcock and a Strangler.
A buzzcock and a strangler. We've touched on that one before, so I'm going to throw the baton back to you.
Okay, thank you. It's really good so far. I'm quite enjoying this. Right, well, I'm going to cross the pond.
Oh.
And I obviously the American punk
in
scene.
the Titanic or
no, not on the
by
Titanic. Not on the Titanic. I want to get there.
Yeah.
So obviously the American punk scene has had quite a, well, obviously a lot of the punk bands formed after the influence of American bands in the Ramones, the New York Dolls, and I would probably say Iggy Pop and the MC5.
Oh yeah, and Matlock touched on that on those albums,
Yeah.
the Pebbles albums and the Nuggets albums
Yeah.
from the '60s. Check them out.
I think he even talked about the 13th Floor Elevators
Yeah.
and those garage bands, who...
Was that not Mick Hucknall?
No, he wasn't in the 13th Floor Elevators.
No, he was in something, the Frantic Elevators.
was, yeah.
There you go. I was thinking,
13th Floor Elevators
thinking of
had that.
lifts.
What's that great album they did? I think it's called the 13th Floor Elevators with the paisley cover.
Yeah.
Great record. Anyway, American bands. There's a lot, Black Flag, etc., who I love, and a load of other bands, and Minor Threat later on, and all the rest of it. But I'm going to go for the Dead Kennedys, and I'm going for the Dead Kennedys because I think the Dead Kennedys were really the kind of Pistols of the US, and always with a bit of crass as well, because Jello, of course, got very political, had his own label with Alternative Tentacles, and
fresh fruit from rotting vegetables.
Yeah, and of course he famously stood for mayor of San Francisco.
What was the song they had about Pol Pot?
A Holiday in Cambodia.
Yeah, that was the chorus was Pol Pot.
Pol Pot, yeah.
Brilliant.
Governor Cherry Brown. I mean, if you think, and again, really, really relevant now with the whole Trump thing. And I've got in trouble all the time. They did that album Frankenchrist, and they put a poster in it which H.R. Geiger, the guy who did the artwork for Alien, produced, and which was like a cock going up an arse or what have you, and this is in this weird art, and that was banned, and there were all sorts of problems. And anyway, that's not why I like them, because of their weird sexual art. It's
steady,
because they made loads of really great records, and I listened to the Dead Kennedys a lot, and they were definitely a big influence on me. And I remember seeing a photograph of John Lydon walking down the street wearing a sheepskin coat, and he's clutching a sort of few singles.
Yeah.
And I think it's Dead Kennedys killed one of the Dead Kennedys singles.
California.
It was one. It's either, I think it's Killed the Poor.
Right.
Yeah. And anyway, Dead Kennedys for me. Jello Biafra, great front man, wrote some great songs. Campaigner in America.
Yep.
Just a really great person to have in the world. And I think the Americans did really well with the Dead Kennedys. So yeah, I'm going for them.
I'm giving you that.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me have that one.
You really spelt that out there.
Yeah, good
and,
one.
I like that. Fresh fruit from rotten vegetables. Frankenchrist. I forgot about Frankenchrist.
Yeah, Bedtime for Democracy.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
They are still currently touring, but obviously Jello Biafra's not in.
Yeah, that's
it's
right.
a different front man. I don't know who it is.
He does. He still does stuff, and it's Jello Biafra and the one Telemo Biddly Bobs, and he does some other things as well. He also did some really great records with No Means No.
Yeah.
Look, Mummy, the Sky's Falling on My Head, I think it's called, and then did a really great album with DOA.
Right, okay.
And with a brilliant track, which was the whole side of a piece of vinyl called Full Metal Jack Off, which is just, I play it a lot to this day. It's just a brilliant, brilliant track. I think it's got I Gotta Get Out of This Place on it as well.
I'm giving you the Dead Kennedys. You got it right.
Yeah.
So, on Series 1, when we started doing guests, my band at number 2 is the guitarist in one of those bands.
Yeah.
He's the guitarist in the band. So my band at number 2 had their singer not committed suicide. No, it's not Joy Division. This band could have been equally as big as some of the greatest punk bands of all time, and went on to have a great career. They still tour today. They played Rebellion last year on the acoustic stage and the main stage. And a shout out to Lee Hegarty from the Ruts. And Malcolm Owen, first time hearing In a Rut on John Peel was just like, wow, what is this? And a band that, you know, were blending rock and roll and dub and reggae and all that really meant something to me. And they could have gone on, you know, some great tracks, Babylon's Burning, etc. In a Rut. I could go on and
Something
on.
that I said.
Something that I said, you know, Staring at the Rude Boys. Great records. So I'm going to go for the Ruts. And, you know, unfortunately, it's one of those things, we still have them. And we still have the band performing those songs so that the new generation can see those songs live. And Pete, who lives in, is my mate I went to school with, who now lives in New Orleans, we were doing a fanzine at the time, and he wrote to John Peel, and John Peel gave Malcolm Owen the letter. And Malcolm Owen responded with Ruts-headed notepaper. Thanks for the support, guys. You know,
Nice.
You know, love it. And so I'm going to go for the Ruts.
Great
two.
shout. I'm with you on this. I think the Ruts are possibly one of the most underrated bands, and you're absolutely right. They could have been as big, if not bigger, than the Clash. I'm saying
Nobody mentioned them.
No, I'm not mentioning them. No,
don't steal my thunder. Don't shoot my load.
I'm not. I don't want to piss on your chips, but I'm just saying the Ruts could have been a lot bigger than they were, and they had so much more to give, and it was so unfortunate that he died. The story that Lee told us was that Malcolm had been kicked out of the band because of his drug use.
Yeah.
And they had a big band meeting and said, we're going to let you back in. So he went home and celebrated, and that killed him.
That was in the bath. Yeah.
Awful.
I know.
Just really awful. What a waste.
What a waste, Ian Jury.
It is, yeah. Oh,
but he's not on the list.
I threw that one up there to see. Well, we did talk about pub rock bands at the beginning with Stranglers and stuff. Okay, I'm moving on to my number 2, which is going to be my last one because I sort of got my knickers in a twist and started with the Sex Pistols. But I'm going to go for the Damned. Funnily enough, listeners, I know I always talk about them, but the Damned were... It was a strange time for me because obviously the Damned did a lot of firsts. The first punk band really to tour America and did a lot of gigs there in CBs, etc. And the first band to release a sort of 7-inch single, New Rose.
Yep,
and
was. New Rose.
Yeah, and you know, and we're very.
When was Neat was the second single, was it? What was the B-side of New Rose?
Was it Help?
I think it was, but the Beatles.
Yeah. Anyway, the Damned obviously did those things, and then were famously on the Anarchy in the UK tour for a bit. And at the time when they came, the album that really hammered it home for me was Machine Gun Etiquette, which I think was in 1979, to be fair. But I just love that record. It's one of my favourite records. And the Damned, I've seen the Damned literally hundreds of times in all sorts of different gigs, and I love them dearly. And even through my anarcho-punk years, when I was just totally into all of that, I always loved the Damned because they always cheer me up. They're just a really great band. And I watched that. I watched the documentary, and Captain Sensible was. I think it was with you watching it, and he was. We were talking about punk, and
we do have a life as well, but
we do. Yeah,
we watched quite a lot of documentaries.
Yeah, and he was talking. He was saying we didn't really know what punk was, and no one had. Caroline Coon and various other journalists had coined the thing, and Captain Sensible was saying how no one had the punk look. It was sort of appropriated by clothing companies, etc. But and he said, I don't really know what the punk thing was, but they are definitely a punk band.
Yeah.
There's no two ways about it, and I just love them. I think they're great.
There's a great documentary on, I think it's on Amazon Prime, or free on Amazon, but Johnny Moped.
Yeah,
and
he's captain's in that, isn't he?
Yeah, captain in that, and it's all about the Croydon scene, because they weren't part of the...
He used to clean the toilets
at the
council.
Yeah, he did.
In down there, Ray Burns. And with
Are they not sunglasses?
No, not Ray Bans. Well, he put a record out on Crass as well. This is your captain speaking, Captain Sensible.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, there you
it's
go.
called. Yeah, I love it. And what was I going to say about them? The Damned as well, and then they're out now. They're doing Rebellion.
They are.
Yeah,
They're announced for Rebellion as well. So
Pill and the Damned.
Oh, that'll do me.
Oh,
Peshed.
Amazing. The Meths are playing as well.
Yeah, the Meths are on.
Yeah, well, I really can't wait for Rebellion this year. Do you know what? After those right-wing twats were there last year, I was like, oh, this is a pain in the arse, isn't it? But then the lineup the next year is looking amazing.
Yeah.
We'll be there.
I think DOA are playing.
Oh, brilliant.
And the Undertones.
I mean, and the DOA, obviously from Canada.
Yeah.
And one of the well anyway we'll get to Canadian bands another time, but we've got a Canadian band lined up for coming on the pod, perhaps around yeah. Anyway,
any guesses out there, but
one of the best North American bands from the punk scene of all time, made loads of records. We're on Epitaph for a bit, and we're talking to them about coming on. But anyway, so I've done the Damned. Yeah.
Right. I mean, before I say who it is, I think all the listeners who are regular listeners to the podcast will know that the third band that begins with the letter C that are in my top 5 are The Clash. And The Clash, I wouldn't be doing... I've told so many stories on the podcast about The Clash. We've reminisced about sharing the campfire at Glastonbury with Joe Strummer, me playing with Joe Strummer at Glasgow Barrowlands, me managing a band that supported The Clash on the London Calling Tour at Glasgow Apollo. I've shared all those stories.
We worked on that last Joe Strummer records when we were doing the Street Team thing with Streetcore, and I remember that.
And I shared the story about when I was writing my book. I have a paragraph in the book called "Having a Piss with Elvis." I think I've shared that story on here about Joe Strummer playing with the Pogues in the Mucky Duck and Shots. There's so many great memories. And one of the things when I was doing the research for this program was what I was trying to do in 76 to 79 was find bands that didn't just have 2 singles, but had albums that you could rely on and go back to. And the Clash's 5 albums, they had their ups and downs. Cut the Crap to Combat Rock. I mean, you couldn't.
Like This Is England on Cut the Crap.
That's all right. That's probably the best track on there, as everybody would say. It's a bit like it's a track with one album. Stone Roses' second album, track with one album. An album with one track. Sorry. Yeah. So I'm not gonna. There's nothing more I can say about The Clash apart from
the only band that matters.
The only band that matters, but. And I don't think I've shared this analogy, and it's just a short one. One of the first gigs that I ever saw, The Clash, Glasgow Apollo, supported by Suicide, Alan Vega and Martin Rev.
Amazing.
And the Coventry Specials, who then became the Specials with Jerry Dammers. That shaped my musical career forever.
The Specials, a.k.a.
Special a.k.a. Gangsters with Special a.k.a. Bernie Rose knows, don't argue. Right? Specials opened up my love of reggae and dub and all of that. Suicide opened up my love of electronic music. Them and Kraftwerk led into my love of Cabaret Voltaire and all that nonsense.
Yeah, they're not nonsense. They're great.
A great band. Nag Nag Nag. Nag 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 was a great record.
Electro punk.
Yeah, but electro. And those who know me, will know that I've worked in that. So that's all I'm going to say. And The Clash being the greatest rock and roll band of all time. Although Stuart might disagree, because we've got a joint one.
We've got a joint what?
That we're going to end on.
Well, we are going to end on this because I'm going to say that this band were very much, well, not the only band, but did you ever see that T-shirt that Kim Gordon used to wear, which said "England didn't invent punk rock, girls did"?
Yeah.
Yeah, I quite like that.
Yeah, that's...
Well, I think that girls might have invented punk rock, but I think the Ramones definitely had something to do with it.
Oh, I think they did.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that, the whole Ramones background of, fuzz pedal Beach Boys songs and, the way that they sounded and they speeded up, and I've saw the Ramones so many times, on most of the tours in the UK. And, they were just an amazing band.
They're just a great band. I think that it's Alive. It's one of my favourite live albums, and I think it's got Bonzo Goes to Bitburg on it, which isn't on a lot of albums, and I love that song.
Oh, I know.
I think Johnny Ramone wrote that, and then he didn't like it because he went a bit Trumpy.
Yeah.
And it was about
Yeah,
Ronald Reagan, yeah. Anyway, it's been brilliant talking about these bands, and I think we should do another one of these.
Yeah.
And maybe we should do one that's not about bands, but about things of the time.
Yeah.
You know,
if you're up for that, listeners, let me know.
Yeah, and by the way, do get in touch with us on email, and we're on Blue Sky now.
Yeah, we are on Blue Sky. We are going to leave X within the next 2 to 3 weeks and move over to Blue Sky. So we're already on Blue Sky, so search for us on there. Des Not Punk pod at gmail.com if you want to send us some music.
And if you're searching on Blue Sky for Dead's Not Punk, it's all one word.
Yeah.
Don't break the words up otherwise, because I couldn't find it when I.
There's Not Punk podcast.
There's us and 8 other people on it at the moment.
Well, exactly. I mean, it's a bit of an experiment, but it gets us away from fucking Elon Musk.
Yeah, who put the X in? Yeah. Who put the X in toxic?
And we're also on Instagram, and we're only 30 followers away from 1,000 followers on Instagram. So whoever becomes our 1,000th follower,
we'll send you a T-shirt.
Send you a T-shirt.
Yeah. Okay, going to play out now with the Ramones because they're the Ramones. And just thanks so much to Andy and everyone at BSI and Home for the studio, and also to our producer Sarah for helping us with everything tonight. And I've really enjoyed this chat.
Yeah.
We should have brought some beers in, because it would have been.
I did.
It's just like our normal Saturday afternoon. You have
exactly.
got a beer, yeah. And on that note, I'm going to go and get one myself. Yeah. So this is the Ramones, a beat on the brat. See you next time.